The Monster of No Name Canyon by Robert Pope. The only thing I knew about the Monster of No Name Canyon I learned from the wife of my collaborator, who described it only as non-aquatic, a clarification made necessary by the fact that it haunted the No Name River region of the canyon. When Deidre went east to visit her sister, Jason suggested I come to keep him company, compare notes, and smoke some primo ganja that could only be had by appointment at the No Name Inn, a shop run by a German who represented the last of a once thriving utopian colony. Deidre did not approve of the proprietor of the No Name Inn, his serving girl Inga, or the primo ganja obtainable at his shop, but she didn't care what Jason did when she wasn't around. On the other hand, she was quite wealthy, having inherited a small fortune from her father, drop-dead gorgeous, and brilliant by all reports. She tolerated me for my scientific and philological work, as well as my grasp of 5 languages, 2 of them archaic, which contributed so much to Jason's work. I had been devoted friend to Jason for nearly a decade, and I put up with what I had to so we could work together with the least possible conflict. As a confirmed bachelor, I had no complications to contend with other than my university work schedule. I arrived afternoon the first Saturday of summer break with the express goal of leaving before dark to avoid confrontation with any legendary monster or its minions. After several inexplicable delays, we set off on a hike which took us to the furthest reaches of the canyon, to the No Name Inn nestled among the trees and attached to a house which seemed to grow out of the side of a hillock. As we sat on the veranda, the proprietor came to chat with us, a ruddy-complected man with a thick red mustache, about my size. Jason was several inches taller than either of us, but enjoyed a compactness that belied his height. I failed to mention that because of the proprietor's ancestry, Jason had worn lederhosen and loaned me a pair for the day as well. There we sat, the 3 of us in lederhosen, 2 of us in green hiking hats as I thought of them. Jason paid our host the deference of calling him Herr Sterngucker. His outfit had a worn look that indicated he donned lederhosen every day for work. He had a frank, manly demeanor, a pleasant contrast to his delicacy of features and the half-glasses low on his nose. His serving girl, Inga, her blonde hair twisted in a braid that swung at her back, brought a tray of frosty brews Herr Sterngucker imported only for special guests, according to Herr Sterngucker. After the first beer, he played the squeeze box, and Inga came out in traditional dress, lifting her skirts at the knees as she danced about in a delightful manner, throwing up her skirts in the back when she turned away. She ran inside to our applause and laughter. I could not discover what relationship she bore to Herr Sterngucker, but it was clear from his expression that Jason had a particular fondness for her. "Quite a girl you have there, Herr Sterngucker," Jason told him, and I assented with a grunt, echoing, "Quite a girl, quite a girl." Sterngucker produced a leather pouch from a pocket and emptied onto the table a tangle of the famous local weed. A pack of rolling papers tumbled with it. Our host asked if we would like him to roll 2 or 3 numbers for us. I had never heard of cigarettes referred to as numbers, and repeated the word to remember later. "Not at all, Herr Sterngucker," said Jason. "I have honed my skills until I am almost a match for you, if that is possible." Stern Gooker smiled at the compliment and left us to our devices, whereupon Jason performed as advertised. With a bright cloud of smoke above us, we fell into lengthy conversation about the first chapter of the new book, which would detail all of the salient points in any argument for the existence of a deity. Jason was of the opinion that anyone who believed in God was not only deluded, but probably insane. I informed him that was not precisely what is meant by opinion, more of a prejudice. The way I see it, he explained further, it is a mere statement of fact. Having long accepted the possibility, if not probability, of a God, benign or not, I took exception to this statement of fact. By this formula, I told him, I am insane. So be it, he mused. I assure you that its being you does not mitigate the foolishness of such an absurd concept of universal order. We deliberated first one way, then another, and once we'd thrashed it out as far as we cared to, we resolved the issue by mutually agreeing that it really doesn't matter what any of us believe or don't believe, as it changes the nature of reality, not a jot or a tittle. These words hung in the air as we prepared for departure. Laughter rang out as Stern Gooker came to ask if we had any last request. The sun in its dip toward the horizon cast a beam of thick afternoon light across his face that made his eyes glow a reddish gold. Shall I put this on your tab? He asked. Yes, please, Jason said. And this for Inga. He reached a finger in the pocket of his lederhosen and came out with two folded $100 bills. Stern Gooker received it with a professional nod. I enjoy her dancing so, Jason said. I hope to see much more of it before too long. Certainly, Jason, our host said, the first time he had used my comrade's name, signaling the parting of our ways. Then he leaned in, eyes darting to one side, which made me glance in that direction. I noticed Jason doing the same. Please be careful, our host whispered. The monster has been sighted. I would hate for you to run into it unaware. I had not heard, Jason said, looking into Steingooker's eyes closely, as if he might receive more information from them. 3 times the monster has been seen. Do you have a recommendation how to avoid it? You cannot avoid him through stratagem, Steingooker said. I thought you knew this. Night approaches, Jason said. And in fact, the veranda had tucked into a deep shadow. A jolt of panic coursed through my blood. I had planned to leave earlier, but the ganja tricked us, as so often it does. Stern Gooker whispered a caution. You cannot find your way by yourself. Inga must lead until you are clear of the habitat at the convergence of the pathways. Oh, very good, Jason said. Night was falling hard. Soon stars would glitter in the sky like so many shards of broken glass. Inga went before us carrying a small lantern that created a beatific glow around her form as darkness enveloped us. We occasionally lost sight of her as we weaved our way through dense foliage, but we always found her again. As we arrived at the convergence of paths, at the small clearing, she turned to us with a look of alarm. We heard a roar that shook the leaves around us. When she turned and ran, Jason dashed down the winding path after her while I struggled to keep up. I did not look back as I had no desire to see what sort of creature produced that crashing and that roar. At last we burst through the front door of his house. Jason slammed and locked it behind us, switching his eyes between Inga's and mine. Of course, You both must stay the night while this danger lingers." My relief was no greater than Inga's. Jason prepared a small repast of cheese and fruit and crackers before we called it a day. I curled up happily on the couch while Jason and Inga lost themselves in the back of the house where I assume he'd deposited her in the guest room. In the morning, things looked brighter and safer, though I had no desire to remain in the canyon longer than it took to get out. I pulled on my own hiking clothes, bid Jason farewell, and set out on my bicycle with Inga on the handlebars, having agreed to carry her as far as the clearing at the convergence of the paths. As we went along, I thought better of it and offered to accompany her all the way back to No Name Inn. I suspect she heard the reluctance in my voice because she assured me she would be perfectly safe in the daytime. At the clearing, she hopped off the handlebars. I rang my bell as she hurried around the first bend. When I could see her no longer, I rang it again just to hear how it sounded in all that silence. To my chagrin, a massive explosion came as echo to the ringing of my bell, an explosion that shook me to my very core. I felt that something would come down on me, a tree branch or the sky itself. When I recovered my senses, I thought of Jason and wondered if he too had heard this or felt the impact. Instinctively, I raced the narrow paths back to Jason's house. What I found there remains with me through every moment of my life since. The front door of Jason's house was broken in, splintered, and on the low porch stood Herr Sterngucker, shotgun before him in both hands, barring entrance. He glared at me as he shouted in German, "He is dead!" And then, as if an afterthought, "It was the monster! Always, always the monster!" I trembled throughout my body, no more in one place than another, and when I gathered my wits enough to process what I saw before me, and how narrowly I escaped whatever fate my friend had made, I pedaled as fast and hard as I could in an attempt to leave No Name Canyon and get back to the university before it found me as well.